Everybody, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us today for our webinar on Sicon's approvals for Sage 200. My name is Howard Murphy, Business Development Manager for DB Computer Solutions. Sarah Vickers from Sicon, who joins us this afternoon, will be running through the features available within the Sicon approval modules. Excuse me. For those who don't know, Sicon Approvals is a locally installed web-based application designed specifically for real-time integration with Sage 200. It's providing data entry and approval processing for business documents, including requisitions, invoices, expenses, timesheets, holidays, sales orders, and some HR also. Now, just so you know, you can also purchase these on a modular basis, so you can pick and choose which ones are relevant to your business. Access is also available via a mobile app, complementing a remote, flexible working environment. So once again, apologies for the delay. Sarah here will be giving you an overview of the product, but we'd be very happy to organize a one-to-one session where we can properly talk to you about your business and offer you a fuller demonstration based on your needs. So we've kept you waiting long enough. So before I hand you over to Sarah, I just remind you to put forward any questions through the Q&A facility or via Teams or through chat, and we'll do our level best to give you answers at the end of the session. I'd also point out that if the shared screen is too small, I'd ask you to select View at the top of the screen, choose Focus on Content, and you can also choose more options for a full screen to give you the best view possible. So just to let you know, we'll also be recording this session, so if anybody needs to have access to it afterward, we'll forward it out to everybody when we're done. And so, without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Sarah. Good afternoon once again.
Good afternoon, lovely. Thank you, Howard. You're stealing my thunder there, talking about approvals.
Yeah.
I was thinking, I'm going to say that, Howard. Don't be telling everybody that. Right, I guess first things first, is everybody seeing my screen in front of them? Has that come through all right?
Yeah, I can see it here. Hopefully everyone can see it as well.
So, as Howard has already alluded to, our approvals portal, as you'll see in a moment when we come into the session, actually is made up of a number of different modules. We're going to concentrate on just purchase requisitions and invoice approval for you this afternoon, but obviously if any of the other modules are typically relevant for you, then we can come back and do, as Howard suggested, a one-to-one for you. So again, as Howard alluded to, I'm going to show you just today the portal, which connects to Sage without the need for a full Sage client license. So that's obviously one of the biggest benefits of this. So if you've got staff who need to raise requisitions or need to submit some expenses or approve invoices, they don't actually have to go into Sage to do any of that. They can do all of that through this portal. Now, the portal is a live version, again, as you'll see in a moment. The current version of the mobile app does have to be synced. We are working as we speak on a new version that will allow you to do it in a live environment. It's not an onerous task, to be fair. It's just a quick button that literally says sync, and it just pushes up the new data and pulls down the new data for you. Now, that can run on an Android device or an iOS device. So let's come and give you a bit of a feel and a flavour on what approvals is all about and the kind of benefits that you can get out of the system. So as we said, it's very much a modular platform. So as you'll see on the left-hand side, we can do things like raise a purchase requisition, as I'll come and show you in a moment, and that will then push that, once fully approved, into standard Sage purchase order processing. For any of you that might already have our projects module or perhaps considering projects, we can also raise project requisitions. We can do sales quotes, sales order returns. We can do, as I'll show you later on, invoice approval. We can submit expenses and approve those, as well as timesheets, holiday requisitions, and we also have HR and absences as well. Right, let's show you how easy it is to raise a requisition. So imagine I'm one of your members of staff who need to raise a requisition. And typically what we tend to find with customers, the typical kind of reasons why customers tend to do this, is that they want greater control over spend. So they want to have visibility. What are their staff spending at the end of the day? More often than not, when we talk to customers like yourselves, one of the biggest issues is that they don't have that visibility until an invoice comes in. Well, of course, by that point it's a bit late. The money's already been spent. So this is around giving you control to make sure that your staff don't actually spend money where they shouldn't be, but also giving you that visibility that the money has been spent before that invoice actually comes in. And as I mentioned earlier on, without having to give them access to Sage. So I mentioned again earlier on that this is a live link to Sage. So as such, it's going to link to all of the suppliers that we have sitting on Sage. As you can see, these are all of my purchase ledger accounts, but we can create a quick one on the fly through here if you want to allow your staff to create one. That can be controlled, by the way, by going for approval before it generates the supply on the purchase ledger. I had an interesting scenario the other day where the finance team said, actually, we love that idea because that means we're not having to waste valuable time having to key it in. As long as we've still got that control in place where we can approve it before it generates the purchase ledger account, that's actually going to save us a huge amount of time because they were regularly using new suppliers. Now, in order to make it a lot easier for staff, you can set up different types of categories of suppliers. Examples of ones that I set up. Obviously, you can call yours anything that you like. But the whole idea is if I'm, as an example, looking for a food supplier, I literally click food and it just reduces the list down to all of those supplies that are relevant to that category specifically. You do also have the ability to allow your staff to generate a requisition where perhaps they don't know who the supplier is. So a typical example of that is perhaps if I needed a new laptop, I haven't got a clue who we get laptops from, and quite frankly, I don't really care. Just get me a new laptop. So I can raise a new requisition and that will then go through to the relevant person in the office who can then edit that requisition, add the appropriate supplier, route to approval, and then it will post a purchase order onto standard Sage purchase order processing. So again, it's giving your staff the flexibility to still raise the requisition, even if they don't know who the supplier is, or perhaps it's you have a purchasing department that, or procurement department that controls all of that. Now, for today, I'm going to use my good old Wholesale Office Limited. So you'll see that I've literally just typed in a couple of letters and essentially it's pulled through all of the suppliers that have those letters contained. So again, it just makes it really simple and quick for your staff. I'll come back and talk about templates in a moment. All we're doing here simply is we're mirroring the options that you have in standard Sage. So your typical, I can add a free text, stock line, comment line, charge line, but if maybe stock item isn't relevant, we can take that off the screen completely. So let's show you both of those scenarios. So I'm going to add on that laptop that we talked about that I still haven't had and I keep asking for. So that's going to be a laptop. Now, for those of you who, again, may be considering projects, whether it's our version of projects or Sage Project Accounting, if you have it already, we can link this to a project. So your projects just simply pull through from standard Sage into here, and it just simply means that at the same time as we're generating the purchase order, it's also then going to push those costs onto the project at the same time. So it's doing two things at the same time for you. Now, obviously, if that's not relevant, don't worry, that will simply disappear off the screen and you'll have that drop-down box with the nominal cost centre departmental code. Now, for some strange reason, I've recently given access to Gordon to all of the nominal accounts, but that's typically not what we would do. Typically, we would give access to each individual to their own set of nominal cost centre departmental codes. And as is the case here, you just default one to automatically populate through. Now, it's at this point that this can become a budgetary solution for you. And again, dependent upon perhaps how strict you may or may not want to be around the control of spend against budgets, you have a series of a couple of options. So if you were to say to me, Sarah, we really need to be strict around the control, then I would be suggesting to you having a setting turned on that restricts users from generating anything if the budget is already exceeded. So essentially all we're doing here is we are at the point of where we click save, that will go and have a look at that nominal budget that you've got stored against Sage to check to see if there's any money left in the pot. And if there isn't, it'll just pop back up with a message to say, save cancelled, nominal budget exceeded. So it literally is that, computer says no moment, sorry, you can't spend any money, and it's locking it down at that point. It's usually something that finance, as you can imagine, love. Members of staff, not so much. Now, your second option, if you need to give them a lot more flexibility, so that might be too rigid and too strict for your business, don't worry. The next option, as I'm going to come and show you in a moment, is that you can just simply allow your users the ability to still generate it, and it will go through, and it can be either sent to the usual line manager. But again, as you'll see in a moment, I have access to budgets, real-time budgets through this screen. Or it can actually be triggered to go to a named designated over budget approver. So that could be the finance director. So it might skip the usual department head, line manager, and it just goes straight through to somebody who could then make that decision as to whether it ought to actually be approved or not. So you've got a bit of flexibility at both ends. It's dependent upon, you know, how much you want to control your budgets, but obviously your budgets need to be held in Sage in order for that to work for you. So that's a typical free text. Your other, as I mentioned, is a stock item. Now you can add stock in a number of different ways. So the first is literally, I come in here and we just search for my good old espresso machine, which is always my go-to, as poor old Howard knows.
Yeah,
we demos. It's a bit of a running joke.
Ours too, by the way. It's in everything we do.
Now, of course, the difference with having a stock item, and by the way, it doesn't have to be a physical stock item that you book in. As an example, internally in our organisation, all of our software is set up as a code. It's just simply a code at the end of the day. So it's just a mechanism to easily get something on there without having to manually free text it out. So in here, of course, the nominal account's already pulled through because that's already designated in Sage. So it's one less thing for me to have to worry about. And also, I don't have to worry about the price because, again, that's automatically pulled through. If you want to, you can give your staff the ability to override that. So there's my good old espresso machine. We can't do a demo, Howard, can we, without an espresso machine?
No.
So we've now got two lines. We've got that laptop, we've got our espresso machine. I can pop in a justification if I needed to. And by the way, you can make that mandatory. So if you always want your staff to put in a reason as to why they're buying something, that can be made mandatory, as well as attaching a document. So I can actually upload a document or a file or whatever in here. Now at this point, I could save it and then come back to it, or I can save and submit it, as I'll come and do in a moment. If we need, however, to send a quote to a supplier, I can do that as well. So, sorry, do excuse me. So I'm going to save and submit that. And all that happens at this point is that it will automatically generate an email notification out to whoever needs to approve it. And that can be multiple people based on the value, based on the nominal account, based on the supplier, the person that's asking for it. There's all sorts of configuration options, which I'll come and show you later on, far more than the standard Sage purchase requisition. So some of you may already be using the standard one. Ours has an awful lot more flexibility and control in there. Now, before I come on to the approval side of things, I just mentioned earlier on the fact that we have these template options. So I'm going to come in here and just give you a quick example of that. Let me just come back to my, let's say, AB Cookers. This is kind of like your shopping basket list, basically. So as you can see, I've got a couple of stock templates. So this is great for organisations where you're ordering lots and lots of things. So instead of me having to add each line individually, I can literally just go down my list and say, I'll have one of those, I'll have 3 of those, I'll have 2 of those, and I'll have one of those today. And then all you're basically doing is literally, right, scroll down. So you can see that's actually quite a long list, generate and submit for approval. And that's basically then my requisition. Sorry, I've got a nominal account missing on one of them. But that becomes a much, as you can imagine, much quicker way of generating a requisition instead of having to add each line individually. Right, let's come into the approval side. So it's as simple as that. Generate my requisition, routes for approval, and then, as I mentioned, the approval will get an automated email notification with a little hyperlink in the email to tell them that there is a requisition awaiting their approval. Very simply, as I'll do now. So I've logged in as Sarah as Gordon's line manager, and all I'm going to do now is come and approve this. Now, before I come and approve it, though, I might actually want to have a look at that budget information. So I can do that in one of two ways. I can either come into the inquiry screen, and you'll see we've got a budget view through here, or as I'll show you in a second, we've also got budget drill downs through the line requisitions as well. Now, we've also got this little flag as well, just to highlight to you that something is actually over budget. So I don't have to worry about even keeping track of that. It's flagging to me straight away. So if we come and have a look at that one that we've literally just generated. So again, there's my laptop and espresso machine. There's that budget tab that we were just talking about. And again, whether it's project related or nominal related, you'll see that we can link to budgets on both. So if we come and have a look at that nominal budget, if I'd have actually set up a budget against that nominal specifically in Sage, that would automatically pull through for me. So that could be monthly, year to date, annually. We can see all of the invoices that have been matched. We can see all of the fully approved purchase orders, as well as those requisitions that are still awaiting approval. And similarly, any invoices that might also be awaiting approval, and then what's remaining. So it's really about giving real-time reporting information to your department heads so they can make an informed decision. You know, should I actually be approving these items or not? Well, clearly, if I have no money left in the pot, I really shouldn't be doing that. So there's no excuse anymore for staff overspending budgets, because as you can see, I've got all of the real-time information to hand. And again, it means that you're not having to produce budget reports for your department heads. Usually, let's face it, out of date as soon as you've produced it. Now, I've drilled into the information. As you can see, that's now given me all of the transactions that have gone through. So I can actually drill in to see every single transaction that's gone through. So again, you don't have to be producing budget reports for them anymore. Right, let's come and approve that item, shall we? So if we come back to that line and we'll come and approve it. Obviously, I don't have to approve it, of course. So let's come back to that line. So I've got a couple of options. I could approve it, or of course I could reject it, and I can pop in a reason if I'm rejecting it. Either way, that will automatically update the originators just to keep them in the loop so they know exactly what's happening with these items and they're not having to chase anybody. So if we come and approve this, this is where, as I mentioned earlier on, it could actually go through to more people if it was over a certain value, as an example. So you can have as many people in that approval workflow as you like, and I'll come and show you an example of that in a second. But let's show you what's happened to that requisition now. So I've only got one person set up to approve that item. So if we come into standard Sage purchase order processing, you'll see obviously the benefit of this now is that I haven't had to key anything in. So there's no duplication of workload. And there we go. There's that purchase order with my 2 lines of my good old laptop and my good old espresso machine. So at this point, you could just let Sage send it through. So there we go. You could just let Sage email it to your supplier if you wanted to. You could actually send it from Sage using our documents distribution module that I'll come and show you and talk about later on. Or you could simply allow approvals to automatically send it out if you wanted to. Or the final option, as I'll come and show you now, is that the users could actually send this themselves from the approvals portal. Now, don't worry that you're going to have staff sending these items out that haven't been approved. They can only do this if it's been fully approved, as you'll see now. So if I just quickly log back in as Gordon again and show you the requisition. So you'll see I've now got my requisitions. I've created some there new that I haven't actually submitted. I've just generated them to come back to them. Those are the ones that have submitted, but they haven't been fully approved yet. So as you can see, I can only print a quote request. I can't do anything else with them. But if I come to the Approve tab, not only do I have a purchase order number, I also have that print summary. So this is where through email, so there we go, there's my laptop and espresso machine again. Basically, I can click send and that just automatically attaches itself to an email for you. It will automatically pull through the email address that has got to go to. Of course, because it's email at that point, you can attach as many additional documents as you like. And if you have different companies, we can even set up different layouts on the purchase orders if you want to, dependent upon which company you've actually signed in as. So we've generated the requisition, we've approved it. For those of you who actually then want your staff to acknowledge that they've received it, we can even do all of that through purchase requisitions as well. And again, this is usually something that finance members love because it just means they're not having to chase the staff to say, well, I'm trying to process an invoice. Have you actually received the goods? Because I don't want to process the invoice until I know from you that you've received the services or the goods or whatever it is that you've ordered. So this is really about an acknowledgement of that, not necessarily a physical goods received. It's just an acknowledgement of whatever you've ordered, tell me that you've had it. And we can even go one better than that. We can get the system to automate reminders and chases for your staff. So if they haven't done a GRN by that date received, it will chase it. And it will keep chasing your staff until they've done the GRN. So again, you don't have to be chasing after them. The system will do that for you. There we go. There's that one that we've literally just generated. And all I do is pop in my supplies document number. I can upload that goods received note in here or any other documents if I wanted to. And those can then be stored against the purchase order back in Sage. I can do a part goods services received. So if that was 10 as an example, I could say, well, I've only received 5 and it will simply leave the remaining 5 to be received at a later date. Or it could be actually that was an example of 10 that I'd ordered and I've received 9, but I don't know, for whatever reason, I'm not going to receive the final one. By marking this as a final receipt in here, it will then automatically reduce the original purchase order down to 9 for you in Sage. So it just means you're not then having to manually amend the PO. We'll even do that for you. So let's just come and receive all of those. And that's now receive them, save. And yes, I do want to receive it. And by the way, if they are items that have to be booked in, it will even book those in for you all at the same time as well. So it's doing all of that. Now you'll see if I come into Sage, so imagine I'm now in your finance department and I've got a stack of invoices that I now need to process. Obviously I'm now in Sage, we're not doing anything particularly different just yet. We'll come and record our invoice, pop in the value, which is, what is it, 799.34, and we've got a bit of VAT on there, which is 159.87. Now, I don't know if any of your eagle-eyed have spotted, but there's the GRN at the bottom. So that's what automatically pulls through from approvals for you. So not only do we get that GRN, but it can also pull through who actually booked that item in. And then, of course, we've got the date and the quantity. So that's all pulling through automatically for you. And then we just simply post the invoice in the normal standard Sage way. Now, when we post this invoice, we then have the capacity to attach an invoice using our documents module. So there's a couple of ways actually that you can do this. I'll just concentrate on the basic version of documents for you today, but we also have the full-blown document automation, and I think we've got another session planned on that one another date. So by all means, please register yourself for that one. So the full-blown document automation is about not having to key the invoices in. You simply train the system and then it knows where to look for the information and it will just enter the invoices for you automatically and post them with an attachment. So that's one variation of our documents, but the basic version is literally just giving you the ability to either drag and drop, or I can attach a document if it's all ready. Let's just attach, I don't know, that one, it doesn't really matter. So we can attach an invoice in there and save it, and as you'll see in a moment, that will then automatically attach to the transaction. So no paper trail, no having to store documents separately. It's all in one place in Sage against the transaction, which of course means it's really simple to retrieve. Great for when you get the auditors in. Trust me, the amount of times I hear back from customers who say, oh, we've had the auditors in, we didn't have to waste valuable time trying to retrieve them. We just gave them a Sage access. They sat down and they could literally, as I'll show you in a second, click view, and it was all attached for them. So it saved them a huge amount of disruption and time. So that's the one way. The other way is if I just click add documents again and just quickly open up Outlook, which apologies, I thought I had open already, is I can just simply drag and drop the email or just the attachment if I wanted to. So if I just do that, that's now, move that out of the way, that's going to add that as a secondary attachment. So that's now also attached to, there we go, that attachment. So we've now got the email and we've got the original document as well. Now, if I come and save that and then come into the inquiry screen, as I'll show you in a second, why does that not match the nominal? That's because I've got landed costs. Let's delete. Sorry, it's because of something I've got set up in Sage. Just typical. I've got my landed costs. Sorry, it's one of our other modules I've got turned on. Let's come and take landed costs off if it'll let me. Oh no, it's not going to let me. No, it's not going to let me.
That's the beauty of demo data, Sarah.
I completely forgot when I generated my requisition for a coffee machine. I've got landed costs turned on specifically for a coffee machine. So it's just typical, isn't it? I completely forgot about that. Sorry, my apologies. So essentially it means that the value is not matching and it's not going to let me do that. So I'll tell you what I'll do is let me show you again, true Bluebeat style fashion, as they said when I was a child. Here's one I've prepared earlier. Let me show you one that I have processed with an attachment. So if I come into Wholesale Office, bear with me 2 ticks, you'll see there's an invoice that I processed previously, and there's a document that I've attached. So that's just the extra bit that we have. And there's our little documents module again. So actually I'm not limited to just attaching documents through the standard purchase ledger screen. I can attach it through the nominal ledger, through SOP, through POP, through Cashbook, through the stock screens. There's various places within Sage that we have that same ability to add a document. But if I just quickly click on View Documents, there we go. There was an attachment that I did previously against, literally just a couple of days ago, against that transaction. So as I mentioned, it's just storing it all in one place for you. Now I've actually got all of my transactions set up to do a further approval on the invoice actually, which means it does post into Sage, as you can see with the attachment, but it's locked it down with that U for unauthorized. So it just means it's not going to appear in your suggested payments routine until such times as it's approved in the invoice module, as I'll come and show you in a moment. So to be fair, most of our customers, what they tend to say is, as long as the invoice matches the purchase order and the GRN, I don't need it to go out for further approval. So that's exactly what we can do. We can post it straight away. The second thing that they'll tend to do is they'll say, if there's a variance between the value, and you can set up a tolerance level, by the way, so maybe a penny, maybe £20, it'll flag that there's a tolerance, it's over that tolerance value, and it will then push it back out for approval through to the invoice module. Or as I've got, you just say everything needs to go out for further approval through the invoice module. So without further ado, let's actually come and show you that invoice module. So again, pretty simple. All that happens, I come and log on as Sarah, because Gordon doesn't have authority to approve invoices. So Sarah will have received, again, email notifications to say that there are invoices awaiting her approval. And this time, if I come into the invoice module, click on approve, I'll see a list of invoices with attachments for me to approve it. So obviously, again, the advantage of this is that there's no paper trail. So I can actually be approving these anywhere. I might be off site. I might not be in the office for a week. You don't want to be holding up payments because you've got your directors not in the office. So they can be doing this from wherever they are. So there's the attached invoice. And again, I've got the ability to approve or reject down here or at line level. But I've also got the ability to hold it. And this is quite a handy thing to have to just keep your suppliers informed. So we've just created this little tool that allows you to email the supplier if you want to put the invoice on hold. So it's not really you're rejecting it, you're not approving it, you're just querying it. So you'll see it's automatically pulled through the email address of that supplier for me. It's telling them that the invoice is on hold and the invoice number, and then it's just pulled through the reason why that's on hold. And then I just simply click send, and that sends it out through Outlook. And when we're happy to release it, all I simply do is come back in. So we can see it's on hold over there. We unhold it. I never know whether that's a Sicon made up word or whether it's actually a word. So we unhold it. So it's now going to push it through to let the supplier know that we've now taken it off hold. As simple as that. Now, the only status that will change anything for you back in Sage is approve. So if I reject it, it stays in the approvals. It doesn't do anything in Sage. We just simply keep it in the approvals portal. But you've got reports that you can pull off to see where the invoices are. So have we got rejected invoices? Have we got invoices approved? Have we got invoices that are on hold? Because obviously Sage doesn't have any visibility of on hold and rejected invoices. But essentially, once I've approved that, again, it can go through to as many people as you like. But once it's fully approved, it will then automatically take that U status off back in Sage for you. And that's the point where it will then appear in your standard Sage suggested payments report. Now, whilst we're on the subject of payments, we can also do that as part and parcel of the same module. So essentially, all you're going to do is run your normal standard Sage suggested payments report. The difference is you just don't print it. You don't need to print it because that report will now pull through into the portal for you. We don't charge you any more money for this, by the way. As I said, it's all part and parcel of the same invoice module. So I've got all of my suppliers here. Now, I think the couple of main benefits as I see it for this particular area is, first of all, you get to see the invoices. Whereas, as you know, when you're trying to look at a suggested payments report in Sage, you've got no correlation to the invoices unless you filed them away separately somewhere. Whereas with ours, those are all of the individual invoices, but we're showing you the actual invoices attached as well. And then you can simply decide which ones you want to approve. Or I've still got the flexibility to change the amount. So it might be, I don't want to release the whole value of some of these invoices. I don't have to go back into Sage to amend it, to run it again. I can simply come in here. And as you'll see in a second, when it loads everything up, I can then change the value. And then at that point, approve, and it just pops it back into Sage. So there we go. I can change the value. Once I'm happy with all of that, it just simply pops it back into Sage, and then you just do your normal payment routine then essentially at that point. Okay. Right, a couple of things to finish off on because I'm mindful of the time for everybody. I mentioned earlier on the flexibility that we have around the workflow, the approval workflow. Now, at the moment, I've only got mine set up for a couple of options. You're obviously not going to have every single option turned on, but you'll see you can have a different configuration according to the type of document that's being generated. So actually, your invoices might have a completely different configuration to your payments, as an example. For those of you who might have multiple companies, your configuration of an approval workflow might be completely different for each company. So if we come to requisitions, you'll see I've got my company set up and I've currently got my workflow configured for requisitions based on the nominal account. That could be by project, could be by the requesting user. So if Howard, as an example, generated a requisition, that would go through to Ian. If I generated a purchase requisition, it would go through to my boss, Steve, as an example. So it bases it on the person that's generating the requisition. Now, at this point, this is where I was saying earlier on, you can have as many people in that approval workflow as you like. We don't have a maximum limit. And it's basically the way that it works is you set up every approver with their own maximum approval limit. And for some strange reason, I've given Sarah Smith a most humongous maximum approval value, far too much. I think I need to reduce a few of those 9s. That's a ridiculous value. So I shall be making a note of that later to reduce that one. So in a simple workflow, requisition comes through, it looks at the configuration, looks at the value and just determines how many people it needs to go through to. Do I go through to both people? If we've made it mandatory to go through to both people, do I just need to go through to Sarah if it's under her maximum approval value? Or do I need to go through to the administrator as well if it's over Sarah's maximum approval value? So that's just a very simple way of doing it. But we can have a slightly more complex way of doing it where it can be sent to multiple people at the same time. That's usually quite good if you've got lots of people in finance or procurement, any one of whom could pick it up. So it doesn't really matter who picks it up as long as somebody signs off on it. So essentially all we do is we send that notification to as many people as you want us to send it through to. And then whoever needs to pick it up will pick it up. But we can tie that into what we call a value band. So as an example, if I send an email notification to all of you now, but the requisition was only £100, only one of you might need to approve it. But if it was £1,000, that might suggest that maybe 2 out of all of you need to approve it. So you set the value limits with a number of people that need to sign off on it. Now, of course, we also need to cover periods of absence, and we have thought of everything. So in order to cover that, we have this simple little out of office functionality. So it just means you're not having to set up brand new approval workflows to cover those instances. And this can be done by an administrator for me if I forget to do it or somebody else needs to do it for me. So all I do is set myself as out of office, choose somebody else, and then anything that's already in the system, as well as anything new coming into the system, will just simply reroute through to that designated person. And then when I come back, that's when I get everything back to me and I think, wow, I wish I was on holiday again. So it just automatically reroutes everything back to me again once I've switched that out of office on. So it's just a simple way, as I said, of covering those absent periods. Right, last couple of things to finish off on before, Howard, we open up the session for questions. So I've briefly touched on documents. Now there's something else that we can do in documents, which is document distribution. So essentially, as well as capturing and storing any type of documents against a transaction in Sage, we can also send out documents. Now, Standard Sage, to be fair, can do that for you. We all know that, but the big difference with ours is that we can add additional documentation automatically for you. And that can be determined by the type of document. So you'll see I'm saying here, when I send out a purchase order, I want to send out this header page, a background page, my terms and conditions. We want it going to the purchasing manager. And actually, I want it to go to my drafts folder before it sends out. But we can send it immediately if we wanted to. But the other thing that we can do is we can also send out additional information. If I come and show you an example again, this is my lovely coffee machine, my go-to, as we know. So I have stored against my coffee machine an image and a specification. So that could be I'm sending a quote out, or I'm sending an order acknowledgement out, or a dispatch note to a customer. So if I come and find my good old espresso machine, you can essentially store as many different documents against each stock item as you like. And as you'll see in a moment, when I then email that out, So if I come and show you document distribution, you'll see I've got my coffee machine stored. So I say when I send out a purchase order, I want to send out the image of the coffee machine and a product specification, but that could be for goods dispatched, an invoice, a sales quote, a statement. It could be completely different according to the document that you're emailing out. So again, in my true Blue Peter style fashion, I need to stop saying this, Howard, because it really is showing my age. Note to self, if I come and open up the email Outlook again, where have you gone to? So these are just some examples of different types of things that I sent out. So in there, we've got a purchase order. This is actually a dispatch note that we sent out, and it's sent out the dispatch note as well as the image of the espresso machine. As it happens, this also linked to our courier integration as well, which meant it's also picked up the tracking information. Another one of our modules we'll mention on a different day. Let's have a look to see what else we've got here. So again, we've got another dispatch note, we've got another purchase order, but essentially, as I said, that could be any type of document with specifications that you always want to make sure that go out, and it just saves you having to think about it. Make sure you've got a nice professional looking document that's going out to the customer as well. So I've obviously talked about purchase requisitions and invoice approval. Obviously, you don't have to do purchase requisitions. It might be that that's not relevant for your business at all. You could just simply do purchase invoices. We do have a lot of customers that say, we don't want to do purchase orders. It's really not relevant, but actually we do approve invoices, and that actually would be quite beneficial for us. So I guess time for questions, Howard. Any questions in the chat? Is anybody asking any questions?
I just invite anybody to put in any particular queries just on what you've seen here today. Just to point out as well that the interface that you see here, available via browser, we also, our Sicon also have a mobile variant of this as well. But just to mention the other modules that are there as well as part of the actual Sicon approvals, and maybe you can just touch on them. You don't necessarily have to go into all of them. Maybe if you could just mention them, just show them on screen, maybe.
Oh, I did at the beginning, Howard, but I'm happy to, I can. Yeah, no, that's all right. So
no, just to give some other aspects of it there, and just to give people a chance if they want to sort of ask any other questions on.
I see. Yeah, of course. So the expenses module is basically what it allows you to do is submit an expense. That will route for approval. We can attach receipts, and then that can post onto the purchase ledger if you wanted to, or we can send it to Sage Payroll. So again, it's about eliminating the need to have to duplicate data into Sage. We can attach receipts, and again, using that documents module that I mentioned earlier on, that will then store that receipt against the supplier account in Sage. We can also import credit card statements, and then all you're simply doing is just adding the associated information and attach receipt, and again, that will push back into Sage. Timesheets, so whether that's for payroll purposes, overtime calculations, costing, charging back to customers, it's a mechanism of just submitting timesheets. And then holidays is pretty self-explanatory. And then it kind of, as I said, an HR and absence module. So, if I've had an absence, or I'm going to have an absence, maybe a dental appointment, whatever, I can book that in advance. And that holidays and absences all linked to Outlook. So once those have been fully approved, they will automatically generate an appointment in Outlook for you. So it's a nice, simple electronic way of having everything stored centrally, basically.
Very good. I mean, we get a lot of inquiries, and we've done separate videos for things like not only the documents, but for Sicon projects as well. And, incorporating the likes of this approval process around the likes of the project piece or construction itself, comes in very, very handy. I mean, it's just nice to know that you don't have to get into the full-blown Sage 200 platform in order to perform some of these functions. You can do them, quite handily outside of it, remotely as well, and wherever you want. And some of the nice things that I can see there as well is the fact that you've got multi-factor authentication as well for, logging into the system, also just to show the security aspect of it too.
Yeah, indeed. So I can't see any questions, Howard.
No.
Everybody's been very quiet this morning.
Yeah, that's okay. That's all right. No, that's okay. No, look, thanks very much, Sarah. Guys, as I say, look, you can reach out to us here. I'll just share some of my details here on screen. Feel free to get in touch with us if you want us to go through anything specific or that we've mentioned or shown in detail there. We can show you quite a bit from end to end how it would actually fit your business. Obviously, we'd like to discuss that with you first so that we can tailor it a bit more for you. You see my email, my contact information there on screen. Please contact us there, and we can organize all of that for you. So, look, without further ado, I'd like to thank Sarah for doing the presentation for us, and well done, because I know you'd had some broadband problems earlier on, so I couldn't pick up on any of those issues there. So well done.
We got there in the end.
Got there in the end, exactly. And as I say, look, this has been recorded, so we will be posting this on our YouTube channel, and we'll send it up to we send it out to everybody as soon as it becomes available. So look, thanks again for everybody for attending, and look, please, get in touch.